But as we see in season 3, the rules of the town have been changing drastically throughout the season. And also in season 3, we are introduced to those totem poles with spiked skulls on them, and that was the only place that they could be found, at least for now. But also, that is the only place that they were able to find fresh food as well. So we see the totem poles are in front of the log cabins, and at first glance they could be protecting them from something, kind of like how the talismans do as well. But I did some research to see what totems are used for, and I found a lot of different explanations, but here are some of the ones that stood out the most to me. It says that they can link a person to land, air, or many other geographic characteristics, and it can also link to a person as well. But I wanted to say, after learning this, it made me think that some of the older residents could be linked to this like plot of land that is allowing them to be able to grow the vegetables and fruit there in the first place. And also the totems could be protecting them from the monsters that they encounter at night when we're sleeping in the log cabins. We're still not too really sure of what those could be, but they seem like they're not the normal night monsters that we see in the town. But also I learned that it can link a person to the spiritual world and creation and time. But the common use for them is to show a emblematic representation of an animal or plant that gives a family or clan its name, which usually serves as a reminder of their ancestry. And well, we see that in the season we get introduced to the totems, and again, that is the only place that they can find food that has not been ruined by the soil. But maybe the totems are also linking a person or some type of monster to the land as well. Now I wanted to talk about the night monsters. In season 3, on the last episode, we are revealed to the man in yellow. We see that he is able to walk in the light, and back in season 1, Kenny says that he thinks the monsters can run and chase after them. And the reason why they don't is because they like to toy with him. So it makes me think, what if the night monsters are just lying about most of the things that they can't do? Like, what if they can walk during the daytime and also walk inside of a building when there's a talisman up? What if like none of that really matters to them? But for now, we can at least confirm that Kenny is right about the monsters can run, because we see Smiley back when Miranda was trying to figure out what the boy in white told Christopher when she tried to go do it herself. We see that Smiley chases and runs after Miranda to stop her from doing something. To stop her from reaching the lighthouse is what I'm presuming, and he kills her after that. And that is the only time that we see the monsters run. In season 4, the boy in white tells Victor that he is not able to help him and that things are changing now, and I don't think for the better by how his tone sounded. But what could it be? You know, Martin and Randall have told Boyd that there are stranger things and scarier things further out in the woods, in the forest, and that the night monsters are only the beginning. So maybe we could get introduced to worse monsters or creatures in the next season. That could be one of the changes as well, but that's all I really can go on for now. And in season 4, I think Julie will probably be the major key of most of the events in it, now that she can story walk. We know that she won't be able to change what happens, but maybe she can influence some things in some ways. We will see, but with the reveal of Julie being the one who threw the rope down to Boyd, Julie could have been the one to have set up a lot of things for the townspeople, and we just not have been revealed to it yet. And lastly, we see Julie at the end of the show with a new look and a scar on her face. She tells Jim that he has to run because this is where it happens and she wants to change the story. So if that's the case, how Ethan explains how story walking works, we know that all the events we have been shown throughout all 3 seasons of the show have been all in the past. This is not the current timeline. But we will probably get confirmation on that once we see season 4 and what's going on with that. So we know that the faraway trees are still kind of a mystery to the viewers, and especially to the characters in From. But from what we have seen, it looks like the tree is random in how it teleports people. We see it happen a few times throughout each season, but I think it's actually not random, and there are ways it can be used to technically like choose where they want to go, but I feel like it's more of a subconscious thing, at least for right now. But I wanted to talk about quickly how the whole forest has magical properties, I think, and not just the faraway trees. So in season 1, we know Boyd tries to go out in the forest to find more resources for the town, and he's out for a little too long, and nightfall hits. So he hides in the cave where he finds the talismans, and the monsters don't attack him when they show up. Another example could be the dog that has helped Boyd twice in the show, and then the dog disappears. We don't really see him after that, and we know that the dog has helped Victor before as well, because there have been some drawings that we see in this show that depicts that dog as well. But there's also the time when Boyd and Sarah were in the forest, and they come across the place with all of the spider webs, and we can see Abby was entangled in all of the spider webs and screaming for help. And I'm breaking up these examples to segue into this book that was written in 1939, and it was written by Enid Blyton. It's called The Faraway Tree, and it's a series of short stories. And the first one talks about how a group of kids, Joe, Beth, and Franny, recently moved to a town where there's a large forest near them. But they find out by the residents that the town is called the Enchanted Wood, and it's like a magical forest. And eventually the kids go down to the forest, and they actually do discover a group of elves, and reveals to them that the forest actually is magical and enchanted. But the elves tell them that a gnome has stole the items from them, some papers, and they all choose to go and chase after the gnome. And the gnome eventually travels up a tree, and while they climb the tree, they learn that this tree inhabits a bunch of beings and creatures, and the tree is about as tall as the clouds in the sky. And once they reach the top, the gnome goes through a portal or some sorts, and it says that it's a portal to some magical land that has a bunch of things that you would not normally see in the normal world from where they come from. So they eventually learn that this portal changes every time that they reach the top of this tree, and some of the lands that they go to are very unpleasant as well. But I think a lot of what we've heard and what I've read from this book is very similar to how not just the faraway tree, but how almost like what's going on and from the city and the town aspect of it as well. And I also wanted to talk about how, what if the lighthouse operates in the same way that the top of the tree does, where when they see the lighthouse, that is like an entry to a new town, kind of like how when Tabitha flies out of the lighthouse, she gets teleported to Maine, I do believe is where it was. And I'm thinking, since she arrived back in the town, like the next episode, that wasn't the real world, she was still in the town. But let me know what y'all think about all of that. But before we go any further, I wanted to talk about the main reason of this video. I think the trees have rules just like the rest of the town, and I don't think that the trees choose randomly to where they place people once they enter. I think the trees teleport you to where you mostly want to go, like the thing that you at the time when entering the tree where you mostly want to go is the best way to explain that. Except for Dale, he was trying to escape out of the town, so I think that is why he was just killed and stuck inside of the pool, because I like to think of the town as a big game that they are inside of, and if he tried to do that, it will technically be like trying to cheat the game by just escaping through the faraway tree when they're supposed to be used in another manner. But when Tabitha enters the tree trying to save the Ankui kids, she gets teleported to the lighthouse, and that's when she is able to at least leave this from town, and which I think at least, and she enters another one, but she's able to find more information about Victor's dad, which eventually leads her to finding the truth about her past and the cycles that she has already lived. And also, when Victor is trying to explain the trees to Ethan, he tosses a ball in the portal, and the ball just falls like 10 feet away from them. So it's like you have to know exactly what you want, and just then you try to go through the tree, and that's when it gives it to you. But even if it's like in a way that you don't see it at first, like for example, when Boyd teleports through the tree, the whole reason why they were there in the woods was to find answers and figure out like how they can, just escape or at least fight back. And Boyd gets teleported to Martin, and like that could be the tree or the forest trying to tell him that you need to see him, and Martin does eventually give him that infection, which leads to them be able to kill one of the monsters. But there are many more examples of this, and in season 4, I think the faraway trees will probably be the key on how they're going to have to travel now, since the man in yellow, it seems like that he's able to just do whatever he wants, and he's going to be traveling in the daytime as well. But what do y'all think about all of these theories? Also, I'm hoping in season 4 that maybe the trees will lead them to a weapon to combat the man in yellow, maybe, or something to be able to hide from it better. I don't know. Jade and Tabitha are reincarnations of their previous selves, so let's try and find out if there are anyone else that's as well. So I wanted to start with Abby, who is Boyd's wife, and I want to start with her because out of their family, I think she's who seems connected to the town. And in the flashback that we see in season 1, we see Abby is staring off in the distance, and Ellis asks her if she's alright, and she says that she remembers a dream that she had when she was a child. So we can probably assume that she's here probably in a previous cycle, in a past life, and she had to be one of the ones that did not sacrifice their kids as well as Jade and Tabitha. But initially, after seeing Acosta and after finishing season 3, I thought that she could be the reincarnation of Abby, but I don't think that's the case. I think that she is probably like someone else. I think that she could be like tied or connected to Abby somehow, but not the reincarnation of Abby. Her and Abby both have a lot of similarities as well, like both being Abby was in the military and Acosta is a police officer, and they both almost kind of have like similar personalities from the little bit that we've seen of them both so far. But I definitely do not think that Acosta is the reincarnation of Abby, because Abby died like 2 years ago in the show, and Acosta seems like she's in her late 20s, like early 30s, so their ages would not really match up for her to be the reincarnation of Abby. But who do y'all think Acosta could be? Let me know in a comment. And as for Boyd and Ellis, I don't think that they have previous versions of themselves. I think since they are connected to Abby, they were brought in the town as well. And the same can be said for Miranda, and she is Victor's mom, and we know she had many visions of the town because we can see all of her drawings, and even some of her drawings have like pictures of people wearing like very old style clothing. So she could be from that. She could be remembering like times from that cycle, like the very first cycle. But Eloise and Victor were also dragged in this with her, and unfortunately we don't have a flashback scene like we did with Abigail and Boyd and Ellis, but there's a little bit of stuff that we can gather. One of the biggest possible clues for Eloise is all of her drawings as well. A lot of her drawings show like a lot of different things that have happened in the town or are around the town, and Victor does say that these are the drawings that she would draw after hearing the stories that her mom would tell her. So it could just be her just drawing from that, but it also could be that she might have a connection to the town as well, like her mom does. But for Victor, I personally don't think that he might be a reincarnation. I do think that he is just a child of Miranda, and with him being in the town the longest, he probably that's the reason why he knows the most about everything. But we also have Tabitha and her family, and we already know that Tabitha is a reincarnation of one of the townspeople that did not sacrifice their children. And so what about the rest of her family? Well, we can probably just go ahead and take Jim off the list, and after that leaves Ethan and Julie. But let's talk about Ethan first. We have seen him throughout the show to like have a lot of answers throughout the show for for a lot of the mysteries that have gone on. And we know that he says it's from his book that he's been reading, The Adventures of the Chronicle, or whatever the title of that book is. I can't exactly remember. And it could be more than that. It could be like when Jade just knew automatically the song that just popped in his head. It could be he could have some connection to the town as well, to where he just knows these things or something. I'm not really too sure what it could be. We don't have a lot of clues just yet about that. But as for Julie, I don't think that the writers would give her so much. She already has the ability to like story walk or time travel, so I don't think that she is reincarnated either. I think this is a lot like what's going on with Miranda and Abigail, with those two being the people that are the souls that are getting reincarnated, as well as Tabitha, and they are bringing their families in to the town because of their connection to them. But yeah, I personally think that there are only like 3 or 4 people that are being reincarnated to come back and try to break this cycle or curse on the town, and the rest are just brought in because that is their family at the time. At least that's what I'm thinking. And I wanted to talk about Elgin really quick. He seems like that he could be connected to someone very important from the past, because when he arrives, he is super freaked out because it's almost like he recognizes the town, and he starts to freak out, and then he vomits in the van as well. And after all that, he seizes and stuff like that. He goes through a lot in those like beginning of episodes when he gets introduced. But he also says that his grandmother created like totems and other things to ward off like evil spirits and stuff like that. And it made me think, could she be the person who made the talismans, or maybe even the ones who created those totems that we see in season 3? Because of Elgin, he does have visions of the town, and every other person that had a vision of the town are somehow connected to it as well. For example, like with Tabitha, when she was young, she talked about how she had dreams of seeing these rocks, and those rocks were found in the forest of the From Town. So, and the same thing with Miranda, with all of her paintings that she had drawn from her visions as well. So if his grandma has nothing to do with it, we know at the very least that Elgin is probably a reincarnation of one of the older townspeople. But that's all that I have for you today. And do you think that everyone is being reincarnated, or is it just a few people like I explained in this video? Or whatever theory do you have, just let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching. And if you liked the video today, leave a like. And if you would also subscribe